Are you personally aware of any steps that have been taken to facilitate his return to the United States?
Look, I think he's a citizen of El Salvador. He's in El Salvador. He's home. He's an illegal alien with a final order of removal. He's a MS-13 member, which is now classified as a terrorist. So we removed an illegal alien, MS-13 member, who has a final order of removal issued by an immigration judge to his homeland.
So should I read that as to say nothing has been done to bring him back to the United States? That's what it sounds like.
I can't speak to everybody in the administration. I can just tell you what my stance is. I think we did the right thing. I think he's where he should be. And order of withholding that everybody keeps talking about, order of withholding is you set aside because he's a designated terrorist, which order of withholding is meaningless, I believe, according to the attorneys. And look, even if he came back, people think he's going to be released and go back to... No, he's going to be detained and he's going to be removed as per the order of removal, either to El Salvador or another country. So this person has an order of removal. He's seen two different immigration judges, and he's been ordered deported, and that's exactly what happened.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's clear to me. It just doesn't seem to be clear on a specific side.
He did have due process. Everything we know about him is documented because he did go through the court systems. He was stopped for trafficking. His wife did file these domestic violence charges against him. He was arrested with MS-13 members with a roll of cash that had the eyes and the ears and the mouths of the presidents erased, which is an MS-13 markings. This is all non-disputed.
So nothing you're talking about
doesn't stop halfway.
But I'm saying he already got his due process and he got a deportation order.
No.
So
the process isn't finished because the judge told them not to do it. So due process doesn't stop when you like the outcome. It's a whole process. So that's why we have
what you guys are doing. Like when they side with the criminals, it's due process, and when they side against the criminals, suddenly they didn't
I've been
get
giving
due
this
process.
a lot of
That's
thought
what it looks
because
like.
I want to actually make sure the things that I come up here and argue, I actually believe in. And so I was thinking, I was like, am I just against this because Donald Trump is saying?
Yes, definitely.
I'm not.
I really admire that.
I'm not. But the thing that makes me better than the criminal is that I treat them with humanity and dignity despite of what they have done. And that when their judgment is placed on, then they have to live with it. But I cannot assign judgment to people because I don't like something. We have a system of law, and I would hope that the same due process that I received, that everyone's received. That's what makes our country.
Because you are an American citizen, you get more due process.
that is what makes our country wonderful. Is because it's for people in this land.
You know what? That's why my house is wonderful, because anybody can come in and I can't kick them out. How does that make sense?
But you know what, Batia, except the one the Democrats are
I
trying
think you
to
are
enforce
right.
on us.
Hold on. You're actually right to a degree that in this particular instance, he is going through an immigration process. But even in that process, which is largely administrative, it's not a jury situation, it's not as lengthy and as detailed, it's the standard is not beyond a reasonable doubt, it's the preponderance of evidence. Even by that standard, they did not, according to several judges, give him that process. So they didn't even give him a truncated process.
They sent him to the wrong country. But in any other country he could be sent to, they could put him in prison, and they probably will, because he's a wife beater, and that's where he belongs.
I'm surprised Democrats are going so far for a person that is not legally in their own country.
At least let us start at a foundation. The guy came into the country in 2011 illegally. That's a federal offense, violation of Title VIII. Ellie, correct me if I'm wrong. A judge did say a couple years later, I believe 2019, that you can be deported. Now, not to El Salvador, but you indeed can be deported somewhere else. And so I'm not opposed to bring him back, but he has to go somewhere else. This notion that people are entitled to break the law, stay in our country with no recourse doesn't make any sense to me. There are very few countries, there are very few countries in the globe, literally, I looked this up, very few numerically speaking, countries that will allow you to violate their immigration laws and say, oh, well, I'm going to stay because of whatever reason, and then they don't have a recourse to remove you. That just doesn't make any logical sense to most people out there.
This is a big red herring, right? Because you guys, it is, because you guys keep talking about the fact that he could be deported somewhere.
The judge said that.
He was specifically not to be deported to El Salvador.
I don't disagree with that. I just said that.
Where did this administration?
I just acknowledged that.
Where did this administration?
I just acknowledged.
Where did this administration deport him to? El Salvador.
She has a hard time to choose another country, but she will always choose the country that you send the person because she just wants to win her argument. He has to be sent to America.
I am not Salvadorian, I'm Mexican, but for Salvadorians and for Nayib Bukele, a putazos.
A putazo is like, pa, 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 pa. Get out.
That man that got deported to CCOT no es inocente. He's not a little angel. He has freaking Mata tattoos. And for the freaking people who live in the United States who are demanding for us to try to go get this man back, if he has an MS-13 tattoo, that means the gang saw him kill another person so that he was able to get that tattoo. This is how ignorant you guys be.
And ladies and gentlemen, on the other side, it seems to have a gotcha moment. People keep posting this clip.
I mean, you acknowledge tattoos are part of the calculation here. I mean, you might have a tattoo.
There's one factor out of many factors. I worked. Have you been an alien gang squad? Because I have. Tattoos are one of many factors that's going to determine someone's gang. It's not the only one. You can't say, okay, tattoo gang member. No, there's other indicia that's added to that tattoo. Tattoo's one factor that adds to other factors to make that determination. What I'm saying is you can't ignore a tattoo. That's one more factor that leads you to believe maybe he's a gang member. It's just not based on tattoos. It's based on a lot of other things, but tattoo's one of many. But no one's removed just because of a tattoo.
Dilo, remember to subscribe.
Remember to subscribe? ¿Por qué?
Yes, he is serious. It is part of the plan. Not too many people are tattooless nowadays. This gives them a reason to detain almost anyone without due process.
No, I never said that.
They are telling you what is coming next. I hope America is ready for dictatorship that they are building. It is here and being implemented as I type this. I'm like, he never said that. So the whole idea that people think, oh, they're going to send you for a tattoo. No, you can't walk with those tattoos without the credentials. It's freaking dangerous.
And I know this is a sensitive question, but I have to ask it. You did take out a temporary order of protection against your husband in 2021. Were you in fear of your husband?
Husband is alive. That's all I can say.
Okay, and I'm not going to push on that, apparently. But
ladies and gentlemen, imagine if you're asking me, do you beat your wife? And I tell you, well, she's alive. That's all I can say. And then you have Senator Chris Van Hollen, gangster Democrat guy, said my main goal of this trip was to meet with Gilmore. Tonight I had that chance. I have called his wife, Jennifer, to pass along his message of love. I look forward to providing a full update upon my return. That is a Democrat that went to Salvador to have a talk with a person deported because allegedly he's an MS-13 gang. And then look what the wife did. And on the post of the Democratic senator, somebody posted this, and as you can see by their hand, those things that you see there, I don't know.
Not only was he gang-tied and interrogated over human and drug smuggling, in 2022, Homeland Security said he was a suspect in a human trafficking incident after he was pulled over with 8 other individuals in the vehicle. This is in Tennessee. Garcia told police he was driving for 3 days from Texas to Maryland, but there was no luggage in the car. He said he was just bringing in people to perform construction work. Texas to Maryland, kind of a long commute to work. Garcia was driving on an expired driver's license in someone else's car. Cops asked him, whose car is it? Garcia said, my boss, in construction. Police asked the passengers their addresses, and they all gave Garcia's address. But Garcia lived in Maryland, and they were coming from Texas. When cops asked everybody to write down their names, the officer couldn't read their handwriting because they just scribbled chicken scratch. But cops just let Garcia off with a warning for driving on an expired license.
From back in the day. Let's just say he came illegal. He's trying to be a nice person because he escaped the MS-13 from Salvador back in the day. Let's assume that. If you're traveling, we find you with 8 people in your car and you're on a watch list.
So I do intend to keep at this until we ensure that Mr. Obregon Garcia has his rights to due process, which is what the courts of the United States have called for. They have said that his abduction is illegal, and they have called upon him to be brought back to the United States.
Voy a seguir en esto mientras el señor Abrego García no tenga su debido proceso, porque las cortes de los Estados Unidos han establecido que fue captado ilegalmente y que tiene que regresar a los Estados Unidos.
So I will keep at this, but I can assure you that while I may be the first senator and first member of the United States Congress to come here to El Salvador in this case, I certainly will not be the last. There'll be many more coming.
And that makes me wonder, who is paying for this?
Who did pay for this trip?
This was an officially cleared, congressional trip, cleared on a bipartisan basis. Yes, like every other trip.
And he did say there's many more to come.
We have to look at it as we are American citizens. We need to protect our families, our borders, our children. I don't care about politics. Well, I do, but I want to preserve life. And that's the only reason why I have taken and spoken about Rachel all this time. If you're a mother here in the room, can you imagine standing there alive? You're alive, and someone comes and puts their hands into your chest and rips out your heart? That's what it feels like. It feels like a part of you is being ripped out of you. You can't even describe the pain. Just like you can't describe to your husband what it feels like to carry a baby in your womb, or to feel those first kicks, or to know just intuitively if it's a boy or a girl. It's only a thing that a mother knows. Why are we not protecting the American citizens? It's just common sense. Why are we not protecting our children? And to have a senator from Maryland who didn't even acknowledge or barely acknowledged my daughter and the brutal death that she endured, leaving her 5 children without a mother and now a grandbaby without a grandmother, so that he can use my taxpayer money to fly to El Salvador to bring back someone that's not even an American citizen. Why does that person have more right than I do, or my daughter, or my grandchildren? I don't understand this.
In a sudden turn of events, this is coming from Bukele's freaking Twitter account, saying that Kilmar precariously risen from the death camps and tortured, now sipping margaritas with Senator Van Hollen in tropical paradise in El Salvador. I'm a loss for words. This is incredible. He's alive. The senator got to sit with him. I can't wait to hear what the senator has to say and what they were able to talk about. And is this some type of power play between El Salvador, Trump? Like, what is happening right now?
In all honesty, I think it's being played. And this person already went through courts and everything. He lost twice.
So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So, it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As 2 immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States.
I think that solves a lot.
He had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State, nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
And in all honesty, if the Supreme Court doesn't agree with you, I don't understand how a judge, not Supreme Court, a judge, 9 people, 1, is like, hey, I think I have more power.
In the Supreme Court, Steve, was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0.
In our favor.
In our favor, against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual at El Salvador's sole discretion was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time. No version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it, per the court, can only be directed to him.
I asked President Bukele, can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to have suggested that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right? How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you can release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing, I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen outlined it. I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin, except for Venezuela that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President, no, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple.
The judge is for his place, right? Why are you talking about foreign policy of outside of America? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago. And they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You have no credibility. Please, go ahead.
I think they just don't understand that some people want to feel safe. And if you always protect the person that sometimes doesn't make me feel safe, people are going to question you.
Deport all undocumented immigrants. Voters favoring the government trying to deport all 11 million of them. Back in 2016, just 38% of voters wanted the government to try to deport all 11 million undocumented immigrants. Compared to where we are in 2025, 56%, the majority.
En El Salvador priorizamos la seguridad de nuestros ciudadanos honestos sobre la comodidad de los criminales. Algunos dicen de que hemos encarcelado miles, pero la realidad es que hemos liberado a millones. Ahora son los buenos los que viven libres, sin miedo, con sus libertades y derechos humanos totalmente respetados.
Ladies and gentlemen, remember, they told Bukele, if you arrest all the criminals with all the money that they have, that I've stolen, the GDP is going to go down in Salvador and they're going to have an issue. But they totally forgot, if you arrest all the criminals, the people that are home feel more comfortable to work and the GDP went up. The point is, people are forgetting more people were getting deleted than babies were being born. And still, Western country is still telling them you need to apply our strategy that doesn't seem to be working in our country.
Don't get me wrong, ma cosa kita bong. Put the fire na mi blonde kush hash purple skunk criollo colombici jam jam. Dur loqueta verdetta welcome.